This is AFKast, the video game podcast. And here's your host, Malcolm Sheaver.
Our favorite Black Ops operator, Sam Fisher, is joining the Rainbow Six Siege community. He brings a new weapon, a new gadget, and a new update that completely changes the game. This week on AFKast, we are talking about Operation Shadow Legacy. Alright, so the first thing that we are going to be talking about is Sam Fisher. He is going to be the one and only operator that is coming out with this update. In the future, there will be of this operation specifically, there will actually be a Tachanka rework, which we will talk about near the end of the episode. But just starting off with what's in this update right here, right now, we have Sam Fisher, whose codename is actually Zero in this game. And he brought along with him a update that completely changed the game. So first, we're going to take a look at him. So his primary weapon, he has a new primary weapon, which is amazing because people have been asking for that for a long time. I personally didn't really care that they stopped doing that for a little bit, but a lot of people are excited that this is a brand new weapon that is introduced to the game, especially since it is a futuristic weapon, and one that fits Sam Fisher. So it is the SC3000K, so basically 3K. And then he also has the MP7 as his other gun, but everyone's pretty much going to be using the SC. And then his two gadgets that he has the frag grenade and he has the claymore. His secondary weapon is the 5.7 USG with a suppressor that you can't take off. I kind of wish they made him a specific pistol, like a new pistol as well in the game that had a built-in suppressor. I think that would have been absolutely amazing, especially since it fits his MO better. And then he is also a 2 armor, 2 speed operator. And then his ability is what really makes him stand out. It's called the Argus launcher. And essentially it is, it's very similar to how the, it doesn't work the same way, but it fires in the same way. So I compare it to the Pest launcher because it fires a bolt of some kind out of this small little pistol looking contraption. The actual gadget itself is completely different though, so do not take that out of context. But essentially when he shoots this, he can shoot it at a wall, he can shoot it at the ceiling, at the floor. He can even shoot it at walls that aren't reinforced or soft walls, which is very nice. And essentially what this will do, if it is soft or reinforced, it will actually drill into the wall, and then it'll have a camera that you can see on either side of the wall. And then also one taser that I can use, and he gets 4 of these total. It is very obvious when it comes through the wall, and yeah. So how it's obvious is that it creates like a puff of smoke when it first comes through the wall, and then not to mention it's also just loud when it impacts, and also when you switch between the cameras or activate the cameras, it also makes a sound. But even some quick intel can be very nice. And even times that you might not use it on soft walls and hard walls could be very useful. Like I have used it in hookah when we were attacking hookah. And I forgot to mention that Zero is an attacker. He's not a defender. But essentially Zero, I shot his Argus launcher up at the top of the door that leads into hookah. And that's from inside, not leading out onto the balcony. So the hallway into hookah, I shot it above the door, so that way it was facing into hookah. It couldn't switch sides because that wasn't a soft wall, but it allowed for us to win the round because I was able to see anyone who is pushing Bryce, who is playing with me, and I was able to see anyone who was about to push him while he was planting behind the hookah couch. And it was very helpful just to have a camera, because it's basically like having a Valk cam that you can shoot. Not to mention it has tasers and it can look on either sides of a reinforced wall. Now this cannot be placed, like most gadgets, on walls that are electrified. So if there's an electroclaw or a bandit wire on there, then you will not be able to shoot the Argus launcher into that wall. It will get destroyed. And it is, even if you shoot it into a hard wall, so reinforced wall, it can still be shot because it does poke out of either side of the wall. So you're able to melee it, you're able to shoot it. It's not bulletproof in any way. I will say that if you do get it in undetected, it usually is harder for defenders to find out where the gadget is, which is very nice as well. And like I said, it acts like a Valcam, and honestly, people who play Valkyrie has played Valkyrie for extended periods of time and really are good at Valkyrie. I'm assuming that they're going to be the absolute best at this operator because they're able to find those really intricate spots that you can use to get some very good intel and then possibly even destroy some gadgets with his taser. This will be shot out of the air with ADS systems from Jaeger. And one interesting thing that we were testing out Wamai. And Wamai's gadget does catch the Argus launcher. We figured it would, but we weren't entirely sure. But one thing that is very interesting is that after it catches it and the Wamai trap explodes, it will actually stick in the wall or the ceiling or whatever place that the Wamai gadget is currently on. And it will actually stick the Argus onto that specific spot, and you are still able to have a camera that works properly, which is very interesting. It's very cool. And that is a very good counter to Wamai. It's not even a counter directly to Wamai. It's just that it's a good for one thing, it's a good way to waste his Wamais because you get intel and you get to waste his gadget. And then also it's just you can get some very good intel if you just shoot it randomly into a room that has a Wamai trap in there. And if you just shoot it in randomly, it might get shot, but the Wamai trap might catch it and then put it into an even better location. Now, this might not always happen. Sometimes the Wamai traps could put it into an even worse location. But at least it stays up and you have at least some kind of intel, even if it seems mostly useless. But this has actually been helpful, kind of. I've had it happen a couple times now. And I've been able to get some spot offs that get some kills, and I've been able to destroy stuff still, even when the Wamai gadget caught the device. I honestly thought it was going to destroy it if it caught it, but no, it just places it back onto the ground or wall. And then I will say as well that with ceilings, as long as it's a ceiling that you would usually be able to soft breach through, you are able to see on either side of the ceiling as well. So you're able to see through the floor of the next floor and the ceiling that is below you. So you're able to see on both of those floors, and you're still able to use the taser, which is really cool. The same thing works on hatches as well. You don't have to worry about hatches being some kind of different coating for whatever reason. It also works on barricades. It works on... I'm trying to find some more examples. I don't really know. I don't really have any more examples, but this thing can pretty much go on anything. I mean, this thing is very, very versatile when it comes to its environment, which is very nice, and it's very useful for Sam Fisher or Zero, and for your team in general as an intel op. This is probably the best intel op that has ever been released for the attack team, and maybe even defense team, honestly, if you put them all together in general. The next thing to talk about is the new map rework. So once again, we are not getting a new map, but a map rework instead. And honestly, I'm very happy for this rework because it is Chalet. I have always hated the map Chalet. It has been one of my least favorite maps. It's definitely been my least favorite ranked map for a very long time. And they've completely changed it now. It is a very good map now, I will say. Like Trophy isn't a completely solo room that is really hard to push. And then they also changed up like the hallways, that way they're more connected. And just, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it in general, but it is much better. All of the objectives, including Master and Bar, where they used to be like really hard to hold as a defender team, they are now, I shouldn't say they're very easy to hold now, but they're much easier and more likely to be selected now to hold as a defender. Which is very nice, and that is what you want, is to have more ability to play the different objectives. And then one really cool thing that they've also added is that you are able to go on top of the map now. So you're able to go onto the roof of Chalet. Sadly, there's no hatches or skylights or anything like that you can peek through, but it still really allows you to get across the map much easier than walking the whole way around. And the outside environment is mostly the same. They did add some stuff by the helipad to make it harder to get spawn peeked at, which is very nice. They removed a lot of windows and doors for the same reason, and then also just that way it fits more into the new map that they created on the inside. So yeah, it's very nice now, and it works. It's amazing. I haven't played many matches on the new Chalet yet. I've mostly been playing unranked. I haven't really been playing Discovery. But when I was trying to make this into a video and not just a podcast, I did a lot of looking around and was kind of showing it all off. And so, I mean, I've already got this new place memorized. Well, hopefully I do anyways. And it definitely feels more like a ranked map than the old Chalet did. It didn't feel like there were as many corners to be put into, and so yeah, it's very good now, and I hope you guys enjoy the new map. I know that I will, and I definitely know it'll be a new viable ranked map, which actually leads me into my next thing, which is that we now have map bans. So essentially, it's kind of similar to how it's done in Pro League. You get a selection of 3 maps total when you first enter an unranked or ranked game, and both teams select a map that they want to ban. If it is the same map, then it is randomly chosen between the remaining 2 maps, but if 2 separate maps are chosen to be banned, then whatever one is remaining will be selected to be played on. And so this leads it to be so that way you can make sure that you don't play on a map that you absolutely dislike. Like, I know that if the new reworked Chalet didn't come out, then I would probably be banning that every time. Because I really didn't like the map. And yeah, it's helpful because then I don't have to play on certain maps that I might not feel as comfortable with as playing on the other ones. But at the same time, it can also screw you over because they might ban the map that you feel comfortable on, while you're banning the one that you feel uncomfortable on, etc., etc. But yeah, so the next thing I want to talk about is the new Ping 2.0 system. So this is absolutely amazing. So the first thing I want to say is that each person on your team is numbered. So it's numbered 1 through 5. And so every time that you put a yellow ping up, it will show up with whatever number it is. That way you're able to memorize who has what number, and it allows for easier callouts as to who made that callout, essentially. So you can kind of tell where people are or who wants you to do what, it's very helpful. And then another thing, which is very helpful as well, is that if you are on a drone or even just as a person yourself, they added a new white dot in the middle of your screen just to make it easier to tell where your drone and stuff is looking. But you're actually able to ping gadgets now, and the gadget will show up with the symbol of the gadget above it with like a little red mark if it is an enemy, and then a blue mark if it is a friendly thing. So you can kind of tell your teammates, hey, this is where I'm putting this, just in case that way you don't get like hurt or you don't get disoriented by my Gersmont mine or something like that. But if you do ping whoever's opposing you, essentially, if you're on attack team and you're droning around and you find a Goyo shield, for example, if you ping the canister on the back of the Goyo shield, then Goyo himself will actually be ID'd, and it will tell the rest of the team that a Goyo shield is at that location. And the thing that's interesting about Goyo shields, this is why I brought it up, is that if you were to ping anything except for the canister, it would just come up as a shield, as a placeable shield. Which is very interesting because then it doesn't ID him either. You have to actually ping the canister, which is what we found out while we were testing it out. But now you honestly have no excuse to jump into frost traps or not. Like if you accidentally jump into one, then that is your fault and your fault only, because you are able to ping it, your teammates are able to ping it. It comes up with frost, and this makes it much easier to identify who all is on the other team without voice chat. And overall, this makes communication in the game, like I said, without voice chat much easier, and even with voice chat it is much easier to play with, because then people are able to know what you're talking about much quicker than if you were to just try to say it flat out. So a new thing that they also added, the new secondary gadget, for the defenders last season, which was the proximity alarm. This season, they added a new secondary gadget for the attackers, and this is the hard breach charge. So essentially, this hard breach charge you place it down, and it probably takes about, I want to say like 7 seconds or so, about the same amount of time a diffuser takes to get placed, to blow open a reinforced wall. This creates a small square that you can either crouch through if you put it at the right level, or you can even vault through if you put it at the right level. It allows you to basically peek through it, throw objects through it, anything like that. It's not meant to create huge open holes. It's just meant to gain whatever operator is holding it a slightly bigger, advantage. And the people that this was added onto are Monty. They switched out his hard breach they switched out his stun grenades for the hard breach gadget. Ying's breach charges were replaced, Fuse's smoke grenades were replaced, Finka's breach charges were replaced, Amaru's claymores were replaced, Nook's breach charges were replaced, Capitau's stun grenades were replaced, and finally Lion's claymore was also replaced. So I'm sure you can figure out some crazy strategies for some of these. Finka, I already know, is a lot better now with this new hard breach gadget. Same thing with Nook. It allows them to do more by themselves than it allowed them to before. And now people like Ying might be used more as well. I'm not entirely sure why she wasn't used very much earlier, but Ying is now pretty powerful. She can create her own breaches and reinforced walls to throw in Ying canisters in, and basically instead of pushing from doorways or windows or reinforced walls that were broken open by other teammates, she can now make the decision herself where to push from in accordance to walls and whatnot. I will say one thing about hard breach gadgets, though, is that you need 2 of them in order to break a reinforced hatch. Otherwise, you do just make a hole in the reinforced hatch that you're able to peek through, which is still fine for the most part. And I'm surprised they don't make it so you can still jump through the hole. It's just that the hatch isn't broken. Because it does make the same size hole that you would be able to vault through, which doesn't really make sense to me. But either way, you need 2 of them to break a hatch. And yeah, so that actually kind of leads me into my next point as well, is that Maverick has now been buffed a little bit. So now he has 6 canisters instead of 5 for his gadget. So you used to have to make it perfect. So people had to make it perfect in order to use enough of the fuel to break 2 hatches. But now you can kind of it's more likely that you're able to make mistakes and still be able to get 2 hatches entirely open with Maverick, instead of having to do it perfectly in order to get open 2 hatches, which is kind of the point of that. And then it also just in general allows you to still just do more walls essentially, which is really nice. And it even allows you to do a lot more. Like I've seen a lot of people posting videos of new Maverick tricks that you can do with 6 canisters instead of just 5, which is very interesting as well. So the last few changes that we're going to be talking about. So for one thing, I did talk about how Maverick was buffed. So now to talk about a big nerf, which is Thatcher. So Thatcher, now he has been nerfed so that way his gadget, his EMP doesn't destroy devices anymore. It just disables them. Now, granted, it does disable things for a much longer period of time than it did before. But once again, like I said, it does not destroy things. It just disables it. I will say this makes it easier to go against bandits. It's more likely that you'll be able to get off a thermite charge or a Hibana charge or anything like that without or even with a bandit tricking. Because since it disables it, you're not able to place another bandit wire on the wall. You have to wait for it to come back online. And what is even faster is to actually remove the bandit charge and then place down a new one. But at that point, it is most likely that they are already about to breach the wall. So at that point, you should just back up. So it does make it easier in some circumstances, but for the most part, this is a very big nerf. I will say that them adding an increased disabled time does even it out a little bit. And I'm not entirely sure what the reason for this was. I think part of this was also to buff Cade. a little bit, so that way he can hold hatches much better than he was able to before. But like I said, the disable time is very long, which means that either way they'd probably be able to bust the hatch and therefore destroy the electric claw anyway. But it's still a new thing. It's still a nerf. I'm sure people will find some good examples and a lot of bad examples for the new nerf that just came out for Thatcher. But anyway, on to the next thing, which is new scopes. So they took away the ACOG, somewhat at least. So they added, well, they didn't add the red dot or the holographic, but they made new versions of the red dot and holographic that go on some operators. You also have the old version of the holographic and red dot that go on operators as well. So it's kind of just a couple new versions of them. And then we also now have the 1.5 times and the 2 point times scopes, which have their own visibility blocks that have been added onto them, like a adjuster for the scope itself, or just in general some bulkiness to it. So like for the most part, defenders have gotten all of their ACOGs removed. The only one that is remaining is the Boss G ACOG. And so for people like Doc and Rook, their ACOGs were taken away and replaced by 1.5 times sights. And the ACOG is now a 2.5 times sights, I'm pretty sure. So it's still, you still have ACOGs in the game, but a lot of operators have had their things replaced. And so this, I think, will allow more operators to be used and for more customization for the operators, which, I mean, obviously that is the case, but I mean, I more so mean like you'll see more variations of the way that operators are played based off of what their attachments are, which is kind of interesting. Like I know for some operators, I do like to have an ACOG just because I do fight at long angles, but at the same time, I also like to be in the building and close up, which means that I also would rather have a reflex instead, which makes it perfect for me to have a 1.5 times or a 2 point times for that operator. And then, and yeah, so it changes a lot of the game having these new scopes out. And then another thing that makes it nice is some personalization things is that you're actually able to change the color of the sights now. So you can either have it the default red and green. So, I mean, the only green is on the reflex sight. But you can have the default red, or you can change it so that way everything is like pink or purple or green or blue, anything like that. You're able to change it to. I personally just like having the red and the green reflex, but you guys can do whatever you want. You can even make it all red, so even the reflex is red. But at this point, I'm used to the colors, so, and even it looks more realistic, so I like it that better. But another thing that is completely game-changing on the defender side is the reinforcement pool. So you will no longer be held back by your dumb and annoying defenders that will not reinforce. So everybody will have the chance to place all 10 of these. So instead of each person having 2 reinforcements, everybody is able to place as many reinforcements as they can in a pool of 10. So essentially, one person can place down all 10 reinforcements, or 2 people can place down 5. 3 people, like one person might place down 3, another person might place down 6, then another person might place down 1. So that, like, there's all sorts of things that you can do with this reinforcement pool. One person can reinforce an entire objective, which is very nice and makes it so that way those who will not reinforce don't necessarily have to. I will still say that this is not an excuse not to reinforce, though. Please still reinforce, because time is still of the essence in this game. So if you still run off without reinforcing anything, you will still be considered a dick in the game. Just saying. But that is pretty much it for all the major changes for this update. Now to talk about the major change that will be coming out later in this operation, in this update, which is the Tachanka rework. So Tachanka, I'm not going to release much on this, but Tachanka is going to be essentially completely removing his mounted LMG. And he is going to have a incendiary grenade launcher instead, which people have actually hacked into the game because it is in the game files, which is kind of funny because they're playing the new Tachanka in online matches. But he now has a handheld LMG, and then he also will shoot a incendiary grenade launcher around as his new gadget. That's pretty much all that I really know personally about the new thing. Actually, I will say a couple new things about this season. For one thing, they changed up siege stats, so that way it is more accessible. It's easier to look at. And you're able to tell like your ranked stats versus your unranked stats versus your casual stats, everything like that. It's much nicer. You're able to get it on your phone as well, a lot easier than it used to be. And then they've also added a squad finder as well that you can literally use to find yourself a squad to consistently play with. And these are two brand new services that, the Siege Stats isn't a new service, but it's an updated service, essentially, that Siege has released, which is very nice. And then once again this season, the operators' prices have decreased to just whatever it is. I'm not going to tell you all the ones. And last but not least, they've actually released a new battle pass that will be lasting like 40 days or something like that. I don't remember what the time is at this current moment. But you can go all the way up to tier 70. It has the same rules as it did last time during the last battle passes. And then it also has new challenges for you to complete that will make your process or your progress go up farther through the battle pass. I hope they release more of those in the future. Just to make it even easier for you to go through them. But I will say that this battle pass has a lot of really good items, and everything looks really good. Even the stuff that isn't even the battle pass, like the new Shadow Legacy weapon skin, looks absolutely amazing. And honestly, when I have enough R6 credits, I'm probably going to get it. But yeah, so there weren't many balancing changes to operators in this update. It was mostly just the new hard breach being replaced with a lot of secondary gadgets, and then also the new Maverick update, and then in the future you will have the Tachanka update as well. Those are the only ones. They didn't do much besides like tweaks and improvements and bug removals and everything like that. So make sure you guys check out this update, especially when everyone has access to Zero. And yeah, make sure you mess with these new sites. What I've been doing essentially is every time I select an operator, I make sure that all of my secondary gadgets and my sites and everything are in order, because depending on the site now, I usually switch out what scope I have, or what map it is even. But yeah, so make sure that you check this stuff out. There's a lot of new stuff to get used to in this update. Especially the reinforcement pool. I have only reinforced 2 things a lot of times now, and then I'll ask someone else to get the reinforcement, and then someone will point out, hey, you're able to do it yourself, and I'll be like, oh, right. So I'm still getting used to these changes. I hope you guys get used to these changes as well, and find a lot of fun in this new update, and in the new reworked Chalet as well. But besides all of that, game on.
Find AFKast on Instagram and Twitter, @AFCommunity, for any updates on future podcast episodes. If you want to join the community Discord, find the link in the description or on the website, afcommunity.com.